Hello everyone, welcome back to another live stream. I hope you're all doing well. Let's make sure everything's up and running. Yep, here we go. Welcome back everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another live stream. I hope you're all doing well. If you haven't watched my previous video, I spoke about a lot of updates today about Barghouthi and the updates from Russia and the talks. Gaza, I spoke about the calls to intensify the war and the mass resignations from the IDF spokesperson's office, lots of stuff going on. But tonight in this live stream, I wanted to primarily talk to you about the recent ground invasions in Lebanon. So earlier on, Hizbullah blocked two attempts, ground invasion attempts. One of them was by midnight. It was Israeli forces in Jabal Qatamun area. And we also had another Israeli force from the Golani unit, an elite unit in Khirbet Zarit. And they were basically both blocked by Hezbollah. Obviously, they had a couple of attacks here and there when it comes to rockets and missiles. But the main highlight really is these ground invasions that Hezbollah stopped. Now, these are very, very important developments. Why? Because Israel so far did not conduct anything like this since the 7th of October. So they've only had exchanges with Hezbollah. Hezbollah and forces from Lebanon went into Israel. They invaded Israel, but Israel didn't go into Lebanon the scale that we've seen today with the IDF, a special force unit, and a Golani unit that obviously Hezbollah, blocked with fierce resistance. This is sending a couple of messages. Well, and number one, and the most important thing here is, if Hezbollah didn't stop them from invading Lebanon, would they have stopped? That's the first question. Secondly, why are they trying ground invasions? These are the two most important questions. Number one, no, they wouldn't. They would continue to invade Lebanon up until they reach wherever they want to reach. That's number one. Number two, why are they doing it? To test the waters, because they actually want to do it. It's coming at the same time that Biden is sending a representative to Lebanon to try and cool things down, as if, we want to reach a solution. And Israel is doing this when he's there. Imagine how careless they are. It's like they couldn't care less about when, unless it's obviously coordinated. We act diplomatic here for you. You go and try a ground invasion. But Hezbollah are awake. What do you think? The resistance is asleep? Do you think they trust you? They don't, obviously. So this is sending these messages really that Israel is looking for an escalation, and indeed their threats of Lebanon being a separate entity from Gaza, even if they reach a solution with Gaza, clearly they're true. Israel wasn't kidding when it comes to that, and they're treating it as such. I mean, you have a problem with your army, you have a problem with getting actual soldiers, you're trying to force conscription to the Haredi community, you're failing in Gaza, and you want to go to Lebanon. So what are these people thinking exactly? We're really not sure, but they're clearly doing it. I mean, I was asked once previously, do you think they will go to Lebanon? And the answer was, if you're talking about someone reasonable in Israel, assuming that there is someone reasonable, of course they wouldn't go into Lebanon until they finish with Gaza. And I mean, some in the military And the intelligence establishments in Israel, they do say that, but the problem is they're not in power. You're talking about people who were in power previously. Like I spoke about one of the Aman, which is the military intelligence directorate in Israel, who was saying we cannot afford to be on two fronts. And there's a question of, are we capable of going on two fronts at the same time? We're unable to do that. So clearly, though, you're not talking about people with any sort of reason in Israel when it comes to this, really, and they are indeed looking to intensify. They're getting a bit more backing Hezbollah politically. So you've had the foreign minister. He said that we would rather deal with things diplomatically, but Israel isn't able to enforce its conditions on us. If we can negotiate, we're happy to negotiate, but Israel cannot impose its will on us. And if they test us, the Lebanese army will fight. He said about the Lebanese army. They previously usually talk about Hezbollah, by the way, not the Lebanese army. But now he's saying also the Lebanese army. I mean, obviously, how far can they go? They can obviously have limited attacks, but they don't have, obviously, the capabilities that Hezbollah do. But clearly, Israel, by doing these two ground invasions, whether they were testers, whether there was a genuine will to continue, because that's the thing, really. What if they were successful? What if they didn't face resistance? They would have continued, most likely. Similar to all of their previous occupants. They were greedy, neo-colonial entities. So that's what's happening on the Lebanese front that I wanted to talk to you about. Obviously, things were still escalating. We still had exchanges. Israel targeted multiple towns in the southern parts of Lebanon. Hezbollah still directed many missiles. They shot many missiles at Israel today as well, including many military posts. And the most effective one was when they targeted a group of soldiers. They killed, Israel admitted that one was killed and 8 were wounded. They sent obviously guided missiles, Hezbollah, apart from their general missiles that they sent on the Israeli settlement. So that obviously also sparked further outrage. And this is coming at the same time that Ben Gvir and Smotrich are saying we need to intensify the war. These are the people who are running Israel nowadays, by the way. Not Benjamin Netanyahu. These are the people who are running the show, and they're calling to intensify the war. I spoke about them in the other video. You can watch it after this live stream. They're basically saying that we need to stop anything to do with the negotiations now. We need to increase the war. And there's a repetition of the people need to starve as well in Gaza. They don't want anything to do with aid going in. North, south, anything. We need to starve them. We need to starve them to death, and we need to intensify the war. That's what they're saying. So these were really the main things that I wanted to talk about with you in this live stream. If you obviously have any questions or inputs, I'd be happy to take some of them on. Today will be a little bit shorter than usual due to a bit of time restrictions, but I'll obviously try and discuss with, try and answer most of you. Jennifer Ann, Mahmoud, please clarify, is it true that Ismail Haniya, Musa Abu Marzouk, and Khalid Mish'al have $11 billion between $11 billion between them? My friend and I are arguing. Okay, listen, I highly doubt. So obviously, I don't have their bank account details. I can't go and verify and check what's in their accounts, but I assume this is obviously, and I've heard these things, this is proper propaganda from the Zionists, really, to try and demonize these people. And it's all unsubstantiated lies, really. The Hamas members who are outside of Gaza, they were living in Gaza, most of them in poverty, with hardly anything, really. And they go outside of Gaza to simply politically work. They have the diplomatic relations. What, because they live in a house that's better than Gaza, that's mostly ruins? Is that a sign of 11 billion? No. Go ask about the billions that are funding Britain and the United States from Zionist money. That's the billions. The Zionist lobby buying your politicians here and in Western countries. These are the billions that we should be talking about, not these delusional dreams. Do you know what I mean? And they've obviously been trying to demonize and cause friction, really. I mean, there's a desperate attempt to cause friction on multiple levels, and most of you need to understand that. There are attempts to cause frictions between Arab states, between people of different faiths and background in religions. There are attempts to strike problems between political movements in Palestine, and the biggest attempt is to try and cause a big problem of distrust between the Palestinian population in Gaza and the Hamas leadership in Gaza, and Israel is enraged that they are unable to do that. Despite all of what they've done in Gaza, they are unable to do that in Gaza. They'll tell you sometimes, oh, a couple of people protested against Sinwar. People protesting against the war. But a couple of dozen women protested against the war. They started saying they're against Sinwar. And they try and play with the aid. They will send messages to people that, oh, look, your leadership is in the tunnels eating food and you're not eating food. But the people are not buying it. They know who the criminal is. But they think, despite all of their crimes and genocide, that people can even believe them when it comes to this, which is obviously not the case. And that's a very prime example of this. 11 billion of... Look, Hamas as a movement in Gaza, they got hundreds of millions in aid from Qatar, but with the approval of Benjamin Netanyahu himself, the money went in cash, some of it. Did that stop them from continuing to attack Israel? If they were fine with money, they had the option to get more money. And guess what? They were offered even more money to be silenced and govern Gaza and be pleased and forget about their national aspirations and the Palestinian contemporary and historical rights. They were offered all of that and had the option to. But they obviously reject it because they're based on principles. They're not motivated by money. They're motivated by principles and a just cause. Do you know what I mean? So that's what's happening. So be careful with anyone trying to stir division between, obviously, the Palestinian people and the resistance. This is the same campaign that demonizes the resistance, by the way. Be careful of people trying to cause frictions between people of different religions when it comes to this. This is a humanitarian cause. Be careful of people trying to talk too much about also between Arab nations, people close with themselves. Obviously, people can criticize. Look, I'm not saying no, don't criticize, or of course do. But you need to understand that they want to divert the attention. They're artists in deflection. They want to deflect and divert the attention. This is what they always want to do. This is one of their most common pivoting moves, right? Oh, no, but they're doing that. Say something about Israel, but oh, this country killed the 100. I'm talking about you as a country, Israel. You've been occupying, committing a genocide, ethnically cleansing people. Oh, but what did Syria do? Why don't you talk about Turkey? I'm talking about you because you're the longest occupation. Why don't you talk about the Arab country? Do you have democracy? But you're claiming that you're the Western Enlightenment in the Middle East. Why don't you compare yourself with, I don't know, Sweden or Denmark or Norway or Belgium, right? You're claiming that you're this and that. Plus, we'll criticize anyone when criticism is due, right? Criticism is always due to you as an occupation for the past 75 years. But deflect. I mean, to be honest, it's one of those things, this 11 billion. And Sinwar is eating this comfy food in the tunnels and whatever. I mean, to be honest with you, some of these things, they become so ridiculous that I just laugh at them. Really, if I would look at any such news, I'd just do it for comedy, really. Nothing else, you know. You wouldn't take anything like this too seriously. Let's go see if you have any other questions. And good evening, everyone. Daniela, thank you so much, by the way, for your continuous contributions. I really appreciate that. And some people saying good morning as well. New Zealand. Okay, let's see where we are. All right. Oh, okay. Yasmina Abu Rumi Santana. Many different news around the resignation of Daniel Hagari, aka List Guy. Any idea of what is correct? Yeah, misinformation about him resigning. It's his team resigning. He's had a massive resignation with his team that I spoke about in my previous video. It's not him particularly. It's his team, and I have names if you're interested. They're specifically, one of them is called Colonel Butbul, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, IDF spokesperson for Foreign Media Affairs, Lieutenant Colonel Merav Granot Stoller, and Lieutenant Colonel Tsupia Moshkovich. These are the people who resigned. Don't forget me wrong, they're very high level, but it's not Daniel Hagari. And they resigned primarily because to them there is too much political intervention and the leadership is politically aligned. I don't know if they're referring to Hagari because they obviously didn't say. Not many Israeli newspapers and networks posted this, by the way. Few did. It's not Hagari himself, unless he resigns later on. It's like a mass resignation within his team, but some of them it's still in process, by the way. You need to understand that it takes time to finish it off. But the main excuse is that he is politically aligned. He is not politically aligned, like the comments that were made are hinting to some sort of political affiliation when really and truly the IDF should be an establishment army. But you've seen what's happening. Everything to do with the establishment has been ruined completely in Israel. That's why it's in one of its worst situations in history. Politics got involved in the military, interference here and there, division. It's all over the place. So no wonder these things are popping up. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if you have a civil war. Like even the army, the division fighting in Gaza, Kfir division, primarily radical settlers, radical, ultra-radical religious settlers from the West Bank. The division in Lebanon, Golani, mostly Golani, the traditional one that's more aligned with Yoav Gallant, the defense minister. Listen, also, you need to read between the lines as well. Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, he stormed into Netanyahu's office at one point a couple of months ago, demanding some conditions because Netanyahu was refusing to meet him. He said, next time I'll bring a Golani brigade to implement order in this place. Imagine. He's threatening to bring a brigade of the army. What does that say? He's more aligned with that brigade. He has more say when it comes to them. And there's a division in the army. These brigades of the army, they had problems between them. Like the Kfir division, there's a division called Netzach Yehuda, the Eternity of Judea, who are primarily in the West Bank. These people are like radical settlers, protecting settlers, used to abusing people only. No, not urban more. They're not fighters, they're cowards on civil population. Typical cowardice, coward racists. So they were in the West Bank, and last year they had an altercation with Golani to a level where it almost reached shooting. But one senior commander intervened in the last second and stopped the fight from happening. And this is also, people need to understand, this division withdrew from Gaza. What is that telling you? We don't want to follow orders of you, right? And who's following the orders? The Ben Gvir army, more aligned with Ben Gvir. People need to understand these things. Not many people talk about them, but this is the reality of Israel. So it's not surprising that they have these resignations now, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the deep division. You know, everything they're trying to impose on the Palestinians, like create a conflict between the people and the resistance, bomb them, starve them to death, make their life miserable so they can beg for Israel to do something, and they obviously won't. Everything they are planning for the Palestinians is happening to them. Planning to expel Palestinians, they're expelling themselves from their own country. Planning to cause division and political unrest, only to themselves. Hamas is still stable and running the show in Gaza. Even between every single malicious attempt that they're doing against the Palestinians is happening to them. De facto, immediately, it's happening to them. And thanks for all of your inputs, by the way. That will help. They want to steal the Litani River. They want to reach the Litani. And yes, they steal it even. You're right. They probably, of course, want to steal because they were up there. Now they're claiming they want to push Hizbullah to the northern of the Litani River. Look at this entitlement and supremacy. Oh, you have a group there, take them up. How about you kick yourself out of this country and leave us the hell alone? Right? Demanding ridiculous stuff from everyone and they don't want to do anything. Okay. Delirious Midus, the chatter that I've heard is that Bibi knows no war means he will be replaced. Most likely, yes. And you know the man he will be replaced with is Benny Gantz. Not that Benny Gantz is better than him, by the way. All of them are war criminals. We still remember Benny Gantz and his previous involvement in the Israeli army. All of them are criminals. But he's the favorite now. Benny Gantz has history in the army. He was the IDF chief. He committed massacres. He is committing massacres now. Participate. He's in the war cabinet. And he, lots of crimes before as well, including 2014. However, with regards to Benny Gantz, he's more popular. If elections happen tomorrow, right, Benny Gantz will win, according to all Israeli polls. So Netanyahu knows that, and that's why he wants everything to be in flames, in hope that, you know, the US will start bringing boots on grounds, the UK will send some troops, even though both of them have problems in recruitment, mainly the UK, but drag other countries to save him. But I don't really think it's gonna happen. A Wonderworld, do you think it's true that the King of Jordan is a colonel in the British Army? Look, they study in British academies, right? British military academies, the royal family, including other Gulf states. This is their education. This is where they get all of their military training and qualifications. So. But not inactive in the army. Doesn't need to, obviously. That doesn't make sense because he's Jordanian, right? But obviously Britain was in charge of Jordan, so the royal families, they have a deep history. Jennifer, you're welcome, by the way. John Klein, interesting question. Is it true that settlers are already moving into the northern Gaza? I actually just wanted to talk about it. Look, I even had it written down, but there's so much you can talk about that I missed things. Now you reminded me. They created not actually northern Gaza, but what they created is dummy settlements, right? Um, wooden, right? Just outside the wall in Gaza, resembling a settlement. And the military is allowing them. But you need to remember, this is how they start with every settlement in the West Bank. They call it in Hebrew ma'achaz, which is an outpost. They'll start with an outpost, they'll put something, a couple of things, and they'll say, oh, it's our land. Why? God promised it to us. When? 3,000 years ago. Where is it written? I don't know, but He promised us. So they'll do the same with Gaza. And Israel is allowing them. Obviously, it's not inside of the the Gazan territory. It's still in Israel, but you know it's there, and they are obviously prepared. They have plans. You know, this woman Daniela Weiss, I spoke about her. She published plans, right? 3D maps and development plans for the settlements in Gaza, promising the settlers sea view. they told they told them you're gonna have sea view finally, because the West Bank doesn't have sea view. It's only mountains, right? Don't get me wrong, it has lovely places, the West Bank, but you don't have sea view. You need to be on a really top high mountain, and I don't know, one of the mountains to overlook a couple of, tens of kilometers. But now they're promising these settlers, beach view on top of the ruins, with probably bodies still under the ground from the massacre and genocide that they're committing. But they want to sit and talk. Can you understand the mentality of these people? This is their mentality. The mentality of people who will come to your house, expel you, knowing that they're stealing by force, and be happy and be content with that. So they're like content thieves. Imagine how much of a level of psychopathy and narcissism you need to reach. Sociopathic, psychopathic, lunatic, sick, demented, evil, twisted people. This is how you can call them, right? And they thrive on the misery of people. They love it. They get kicks out of it. I have an example, but I'm not even going to share it, about people getting kicks out of people dying in Gaza. I think some of you will know what I mean, but I'm just not going to say it. But these people, I'm telling you, they're sick. They're really sick. Okay. Amir D. Wood, what do you think? Will Ramadan this year lead to calamity, or will the region explode? By the way, the attempted intrusion to the south would be called in German a fart in the wind. Look, I hope that, something will happen before Ramadan. Look, the attempts, let's not be too naive, okay? The attempts from the US to take these things down before Ramadan is to pacify Muslim voters, right? And try and, get their way in the election. Show that as if you're supporting the genocide. Are you telling me Ramadan and Ramadan as if you care about Ramadan and holy stuff? Who are you kidding? Really? They don't care about Ramadan. They'll blow everything. Israel started wars in Ramadan deliberately. In Eid, by the way. They love these things. Like someone said, Satan would be ashamed. I wouldn't be surprised, really. He would really be ashamed, Satan, from what they do. I mean, sometimes we call them a satanic death cult, right? But then think of poor old Satan. I don't think Satan is that bad in comparison to them, to be fair. But I do hope that we get some sort of a ceasefire before then. Someone's making a comment, but oh, Joe, read that Eurovision song was so messed up. Israel needs deprogramming. Isn't it fascinating that they can still participate, right? In the Eurovision. You know, they excluded Russia from everything, sanctions, banned them from the Olympics, and yet you have a genocidal state committing the worst massacres, and they're defending them, right? Arguing, you know, what's the definition of genocide? English speaking intellectuals, English speaking natives, politicians, all of a sudden don't know what the definition of genocide is. Open the damn dictionary. Open the bloody dictionary. Born and raised 50, 60, 70-year-old American or British person arguing what does the definition of genocide mean? You feel like filling a dictionary with eggs and slamming it in his face with the genocide page. Seriously. And they argue. They argue. What does genocide mean? Right? And then you have this hypocrisy when it comes to Israel. And why don't you boycott them from everything? Seriously. You've done all of this with Russia, and you're unable to take such a stance with Israel. Seriously. It's because they're the same thing. You need to understand that. Liliana Calkins, other than Yemen, which country can defend Palestine militarily? Look, in theory, many countries can defend militarily. The question is, who will implement it? Clearly, no one. They're interested in protecting their own thrones, their own positions. They don't care. None of them care. They don't care. And I'm telling you from now, these people who didn't act when the initial bombings happened, when the initial massacres happened, they really won't do anything now, unless again they are directly threatened. I don't think so, unless someone's hiding something, and I might be wrong, right? It's not like we're ruling everything out, but hey, but based on historical actions, based on activity, based on what you say, clearly no one. Obviously, apart from the resistance movements. Kofi said, released Israel said they ate the same food as Hamas. They all ate together, and they were treated nicely, and they took care of them. One of them said, "I felt like a queen in Gaza." Right? You've seen you've seen the videos. We posted them. YouTube caused a bit of problems for me when I was posting these videos, by the way, and they deleted them. But we posted some on the community tab, hugging them. Smiling. What, the guy's going away with a deal. Well, why does he have to hug you and smile at you in the body language? Yet in Israel, they starve them to death. Did I tell you? Look, that's another thing that I missed. And I had it written down even, but there's so much to... There's a witness, a woman called Nabila. She gave a testimony. She was released after 45 days from Israeli prisons. She was in UN run refugee school, holding refugees in Gaza City. Israel came in, UN base, right? Telling you they respect international law. They took them, all of them. She said they stripped all of the men. They took me away from my 13-year-old daughter and 4-year-old son. Took them to Damon prison, a notoriously known prison in Israel. In the cold, handcuffed, blindfolded, with their feet chained, on their knees, with loud music, abusing them. At one point, an Israeli soldier comes to her, takes the blindfold off, says, "Kiss this flag, kiss the Israeli flag." She doesn't listen. He pulls her by the hair, slams her head in the wall. And that's just one of them. Other women getting out, sexually abused, sexually harassed, humiliated. And some of them are obviously like ashamed to say it, right? But they will say it without mentioning their name. Some of them are brave enough to say it because there's nothing wrong with it. It's not your fault for going through that, right? It's the criminal's fault, not your fault. But obviously in the society, in like the Palestinian society, you know, there's still this shame thing, even though I think with these things you should say it as it is, and that you should shame them, really. And these people need to be supported, right? They sexual harassment, abuse, many ways, systematic, by the way, deliberate. And obviously the men, they'll strip them, put those. It's not to talk about Hitler. You're worse than Hitler. Oryx, thank you so much. Marcus Spute, do Israelis know that there are family members in IDF Gaza are killed, injured? The numbers is not out, but are the people in Israel talking about it anyway? How can they hide the casualties? Of course, many people in Israel talk about it, but there is so much censorship. Israel from day one implemented martial law. When you implement martial law, they so uh, desperate measures, right? Very significant measures, right? They started imprisoning everyone left, right, and center. The media has lots of censorship, but people know what's happening. People know what's happening. And you know, if you know people from Israel, you see what they share, what they say. You know, you still have Telegram accounts, you still have people you know what's happening. And they're outraged by all of this. But the thing is, this just highlights the split, again, the societal split. You have this group in Israel who want to end the war, really. And their argument is get the hostages back, prisoners back at any price. We just need to bring them back home. That's the priority. Because they are in Gaza. They're there, right? We need to bring them back. And you have another group of people, the Ben Gvirist, Smotrichist type people, who will tell you, no, we need to go in an all-out war. We need to eliminate Gaza further. You have journalists on live television in Israel who will say, we should have killed 100,000 in the first go. Sitting there in the studio. We should have killed 100,000 from day one. That would have deterred them more, you know? We're talking about 15, 20,000. This is a journalist called Tzvi Cheskeli, by the way. He said that. And other examples, if you read, if you like, for any of you who understand Hebrew and watch Israeli media. Starve the children. Babies are our enemies. Let all of the population starve. All of them are enemies. No remorse, and they get kicks out of people suffering, about children dying. They'll mock them. This is the mentality. But you have the others on the other side who want to end it. And it's a very, very, it's the worst time in Israel's history. Crooklink, any more info on the American employee who died inside the American embassy in occupied Al-Quds? I actually haven't heard about that particularly. I'll definitely have a look. Okay. Delirious is asking me if I have an opinion on George Galloway win and the current message. Also, do you have an opinion about the BBC shift in a coverage narrative about Gaza? Yeah, I've been vocal about George Galloway. Really, George Galloway has a brave voice when it comes to Palestine. He always has. And I posted a video also about it. You can listen to more what I have to say. With regards to the BBC is establishment. I don't care how non-biased they try and attempt to be. I don't care how objective they try and be, and I couldn't care less who funds them and pays for them. All I care about is someone not saying things as they are. I don't give a damn who you are and which network you are. Britain, Al Arabiya in Saudi Arabia, anyone, I don't care. If you're not calling the criminal a criminal, if you're not calling Israel a genocidal regime that's a threat to humanity and needs to be gone and over and dusted, if you're not calling the resistance, legitimate resistance, I couldn't care less about you. I don't want to listen to you. I'm not even bothered with you. I don't look at you. I don't consider you. To me, you're done. You can try and be as objective as you. There is no objectiveness in this. There's genocide, there's a genocidal state. There's legitimate resistance, there's people under occupation who are oppressed. These are the terms we should be using. Any other attempt trying to sugarcoat this, not say something for the sake of that or for money, I couldn't care less about them. I don't care who they are and where they're based, BBC, not BBC, acting independent, not acting independent. Palestine is an occupied land. The Israelis, in their majority, obviously, as a Zionist occupation, are occupiers and oppressors of the indigenous people. The indigenous people have a right to resist, have, will have. The terms used to label the Palestinian resistance should be flipped on the oppressor. But that's the thing, they deflect. Deflection, manipulation, deflection, manipulation. I'm sick of them. I don't even see them. So they've always been like that. Look, and look, don't get me wrong. They get criticism from the Palestinian side and from the Israeli side, the BBC. Right? The Israelis tell them, you need to call Hamas X and you need to be on our side. We're obviously criticizing them for not saying things as they are. Forget about say things as they are. Send reporters to Gaza and tell me, what are you seeing? But they have a tone when they speak with an Israeli politician, and they have a tone when they speak with Hamas, don't they? But do you condemn? Are you not disgusted? When he talks with a Palestinian, right? And when he'll speak with Israel, was it necessary to kill like 10,000 children? Do you think you can tone it down slightly? It's obvious what they do. Do you know what I mean? So really, I'm done with them. I'm really done with... that's why I don't watch them, really. Angela, thank you so much. Yeah, many of you saying boycotting. Absolutely, dude, boycott. Ace Play is telling me, Mahmoud, why are not imams, Muslim imams, sending a fatwa like a religious order for the Ummah to help Palestine? Because most of the ulama in the Muslim world are what they call in Arabic ulama balat, okay? Ulama balat are scholars of the castle. They serve the ruler. And they will bring on ideologies and ideas about someone coming to save us sometime soon, and then people believe and fall for these things to stop people from taking any action and make them numb, shut mentally and spiritually, and not take any action, because things are going to be okay at some point. You know, we're going to be saved, right? You have actions to take. It's within your capability. We're saved already. We have the, if you talk about from an Islamic perspective, you have the script in front of you, right? The last revelation, final revelation. But these people are only worried about protecting themselves and serving those who pay them. And that's been there historically. And people need to understand, the Muslim world, how much of that has been infiltrating some religious scripts, apart from the Quran, obviously. They use it to manipulate people and control them. And it happens with all other religions as well. People use religion as a political tool, to control people and manipulate them. And that's one of the most dangerous and one of the most harmful things, by the way, in religion. We should be very wary of them. If you go and listen, for example, to some of the scholars on mainstream media in certain countries, okay, certain very significant Muslim countries, listen to what they say. It's as if you have a Zionist scholar speaking, condemning the Palestinians, saying we can't disobey what we're being asked to do from the authority. Excuse me, but what if the authority is against human beings or against religious texts themselves? Right? So that's why you... it's like poison, these people. Okay. Ibrahim Dababish, how are you, my friend? Are there any current numbers on further Israelis fleeing to other countries? They haven't been releasing figures ever since the last official statistics were published by the Office for National Statistics in Israel, the Israeli one, in November, that I spoke about back then, about the numbers of Israelis fleeing after the 7th of October, and those who were on holiday who did not return because of the 7th of October. That was just 1 month in. Then they stopped publishing any figures. Why? Because they don't want to shock people. They don't want to shock people from what's happening. Like the settlers who were evacuated from the north and the south, they're obviously not coming back. But that's not just the main thing. You have other, obviously, people within Israel who are done completely with the idea of Israel as a state, with Zionism. They're done with it. So don't be surprised if there's 1 million on top of those already 1.2 million that fly, 1 million back then. Add to them the 1.2 million that were already abroad, excluding their descendants. Talk about 30 million, to be conservative. Giovanni Di Capo, did Ansarullah hit an Israeli ship today? Yeah, they targeted it and hit it. They also hit it, it's burning. They also targeted the US ship with ballistic missiles. They're not stopping, they're continuing. H. Kabir, if Fatah armed wing is Al-Aqsa Brigade, then if Fatah still why is Fatah still communicating with Israel and their armed wing fighting IDF? It's because they split. There's a clear split. You've seen a big split in Fatah. It has many factions, really, now, after the Oslo Accords. There's different leaderships, like the leadership in Lebanon doesn't like the leadership in the West Bank. The leadership that was in Gaza that fled doesn't like the leadership in the West Bank. Some leadership in the West Bank doesn't like the president in the West Bank. Because obviously you have this approach that's been going on for 30 years without any results. And if you're not seeing any results, what's the definition of insanity? Repeating the same thing and expecting different results. So are they insane? Probably. Do you know what I mean? So that's why you have a division between some of these resistance groups, armed wing, and the political party. Sabi Hamid, how much aid makes it to Gaza? Israel is trying to make it as difficult as possible when it comes to aid in Gaza. Last week, just over a week ago, they stopped aid for 4 days completely, and then they let in 30 trucks. And then when the trucks came in, they shot them. I'm telling you, they're criminal. They're mental. And the problem is now, listen what they're doing. They are usually the UNRWA or the aid organizations will handle the aid. But they took them down. They call them terrorists, right? Who controls the aid then? Israel. Israel needs to give root to the aid. What does Israel do? It lets them go wherever it wants. And if it doesn't go the way it wants, or deliberately to target people on a certain route, they'll hit it. What does that cause? That causes the people to rush onto the aid truck because they're starving. If you're starving, human instinct, I want to run to get my food. So there are a couple of things happen. So one of these incidents, they started hitting a truck. The people, they're starving. They want to eat. Truck driver did an accident. One point. They started going and getting food, and Israel started to shoot at them. Starving people. This is how desperate they are, and they want to feed their families, right? What does that cause? That causes truck aid drivers to be reluctant, who are coming from Egypt. They'll say, I don't want to go in. If that happened to him and the people are starving, then I need more money, or you need to protect me or whatever. But Israel is doing all of that deliberately. Again, calculated. Every malicious attempt they do is calculated. So that's what they do. They allowed a couple of them in, obviously, but we spoke about, they attacked, killed hundreds in trying to get aid, right? The flower massacre, I'm not sure if it's like, I don't know if it's like, sometimes I suspect it's something to do with their belief or something. Flower with blood. I think these people are sick. Really, I wouldn't put it past them. It's like some sort of rituals that they do. These people are beyond comprehension, really. Killing people, trying to get aid with blood everywhere, getting flour, right? Over 100 in Al-Rashid Street, this Al-Nabulsi Square. Then in Deir al-Balah, striking the aid truck. And it's not the first time. So, the question is, where is the wall? Where's anyone who can take action? We're talking, you're talking, God bless all of you, okay? What about the people in power? What about the people who can actually prevent it? What are you doing? Are you not afraid? Do you know what I mean? Did you not think about anything but your own interests? Really, it's petrifying, really, to think about it. Madani Butaba spoke about the symbolic house. I hope I clarified about it, yeah? So the symbolic house, and they have plans to to obviously have settlements in Gaza. ABC, it's a tax for having a television set. The government says it's illegal to watch BBC programs, anything live, without owning a license. Why should you pay for propaganda? I don't. I canceled my license. I have never had a license for many, many years. The times that I did, it's done, cancel. I don't watch them anyway. Don't watch them anywhere. Don't care about them. I don't care about what they say. I need to understand here something, okay? What you put in your head is like what you put in your mouth. You wouldn't want to eat sour food or poisonous food, would you? Same thing with information. You don't want to poison your brain with propaganda and lies. Right? I'm not going to poison my brain. If I start reading something and it's poisonous, I'm done. If I'm going to start watching propaganda, I'm done. I don't see these people. Don't know why anyone would, really. I mean, showing nothing. Nothing, I'm telling you. I remember in the early days, I used to tag people from the BBC and Sky News and other networks with the images coming live from Gaza, the bodies, right? Send it to them. You're reporting that someone Israel. Here you go. That's the picture. Straight away. These people know what's happening. They can't act like they don't know. They know what's happening. And they can't have that excuse of we don't have reporters on the ground. I'm sorry, there are many other reporters on the ground that Israel's killing, by the way, so you don't get the image. Over 130 they killed so far. Why? Because they don't want you to see the images from the ground in Gaza. So they know what's happening, but they're not showing it to you. So to me, and we know that from a long time ago, you know, when you talk about Palestine and when you saw previously, you know all of these things really. Daniel Mihet, what is your opinion on the late Queen Elizabeth's refusal to visit Israel? Thank you, Mahmoud, for all of your work on your book. No problem, you're welcome. She indeed never visited Israel, Queen Elizabeth, despite continuous and hard lobbying from successive Israeli governments. Israel has been lobbying, obviously she passed away now, but Israel lobbied the royal family for Queen Elizabeth to visit Israel consecutively for over 40 years. And I'm talking about hardcore calculated campaign. And the Zionists, they're zealous, they're persistent with their actions. And if you read through it, if you look through it, you'll find some examples. And many of them would come directly from a senior Israeli figure visiting Israel that she might meet, for example, but she just didn't want to go. Why? I'm not sure. But what I do know is that Britain as a country, it needs to correct its historical mistake, historical flaw, deliberate, of the Balfour Declaration, and it needs to be a contributing factor instead of this shameful position that it's holding at the moment. Britain as an establishment has a shameful, disgraceful position when it comes to Palestine that should be corrected, and they should apologize like they apologize for the enslavement, slavery periods for other. They should apologize and stop this massacre, work to stop this massacre, stop supporting this massacre. It's shameful and disgraceful, the official position. Khalid, thank you so much. So just going through your other questions. Douglas Lyle, one, do you have more details on the Israel-Lebanon border invasion crossing? Well, it's as I said previously, I think I highlighted the most essential things, really. I think it was an attempt from Israel to test the waters. Clearly, they faced resistance, but clearly, they are planning for a ground invasion, because if they didn't face resistance, they would have continued. Let's not be naive here. If they conducted a ground invasion in Lebanon, that means they want a ground invasion in Lebanon. If they didn't want it, they didn't have to go in. It's not like a special op. 2 ground invasions. 1.5 hours between both of them. Midnight and I think 1:30 a.m. Coordinated deliberately. They want a ground invasion. Right? They clearly want it. If Hizbullah did not stop them, they would have probably continued. So they're planning for something. They're planning for something. And this is what's happened. This is what happens when you're enabled by big powers that call themselves democratic and enlightened and, you know, lecture us with their moral high ground 24/7, right? This genocide state is supported by them, by the people who have the moral high ground. They believe in, you know, their moral high ground and lecture everyone about everything. Go stop them. Instead, they go and save them. That will help any risk to Dimona nukes. Look, I'm not sure if they actually have nukes. I'm not sure if they're in Dimona even. Some people say it's like a cover thing, because obviously it was exposed from a very long, over 30 years ago. It would be stupid of them to keep everything there. When you talk about nuclear, it will be in many other places apart from the places where they want you to believe they are. But it was targeted a couple of times. Interesting question. Van Moore question. In the US, Africans are less left-wing than Arabs, and only Indians are more left-wing than Arabs. Is being left-wing really in the interest of these peoples? Look, I myself, let me give you myself, and I know you asked me a question about Arabs in general, but let me give you an example about me. I don't identify as left, as right, or as nothing, okay? And I don't have a political affiliation. All I care about is what you stand for. I don't care who it's coming from, what their background is, what they call themselves, okay? If you stand for justice, freedom, equality, liberty, universal human rights, I can speak with you. I don't care who you are, okay? This left-right thing, okay, it's there to fool you, really. Left-right. What do you mean left-right? You've been having these Democrats and Republicans in the US for the past 100 years, right? They're fooling everyone. Same corporate greed, same lack of care for people, same suffering, really, same wars, same military-industrial complex, as if they're different, really. That's why you focus on the actions. Don't care where they're coming from. You can call yourself right-wing or nationalist movement and come up with brilliant stuff. I don't care. So I think with any community, really, and again, I look at all of us as human beings rather than communities that complete each other and learn from each other and progress together, right? Not as each as its own thing. I know we thrive with mixing and knowing, learning from each other, developing, sharing ideas, thoughts. Okay, I don't know how relevant it is for them to think left and right rather than think right, think moral, think actual, substantiated morals and things that these people who are supposed to represent you stand for. I don't care who they are. However, I know one thing though. Anyone who supported this genocide should be punished in the next elections. They started to get punished here in Britain, punish them in America. This is all I know. Anyone who supported Israel, anyone who went against the Palestinians, go back to the early days as well. Don't start from now. Go back to the from post 7th of October. Listen to what each and every person said and what they said. Okay, unless they change 180, then we can forgive them. If they supported Israel and continue to do so, punish them. That's all I can say. Then look at all of the other stuff. But if you want to base it on the position of Gaza, right? Even though to me, it's the most important position, because you're talking about people who don't value human life. They should never be in power. Anyone who doesn't value human life and doesn't view people as equal human beings, deserving the same, they shouldn't be in power. They shouldn't be here at all. These people should be in prison. This is where they should be. They shouldn't be in any position of power. Yet you have these psychopaths running a country, killing people in tens of thousands, a genocide, and they're enabled. They're enabled, supported, by the way, not to the truest extent, by the way, in what they say, because what they say behind closed doors is far worse, don't forget that, by people in the US, in the UK, and in other countries as well. Ayub, thank you so much, and everyone contributing. Thank you very much for this. I really appreciate it. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions. ABCD, for those still paying for blood among Zionist society, should they not be held accountable for their support of this genocide? If you're thinking internally, no, they're rewarded. In Israel, the more blood on your hands, the higher your position is. The more you kill, the higher you rise. This is how they count it. It's a sick society. Bar, obviously, you know, the few who go out and protest. Sick, demented society. Delusional, supremacist. It's like if someone's on heroin, high on racism, and completely lost it, really. This is how they are. So the more blood they have on their hands, the more they like them and praise them. Okay. Let's go to the last couple of questions. Lizzie Lizard, did you see the Israeli entity at the UN shouting and accusing UN of being Hamas? Can they throw Israel out of the UN? This just highlights how arrogant and abhorrent these people are. Arrogant, supremacist, abhorrent people running a genocidal state and enabled by what people call international community, which is nothing more than a clique of corrupt, greedy elites calling themselves the international community. Unjustifiably, by the way. What's the international community? The corporate greedy elite in London and Washington? That's not an international community. International community includes every country in the world, if you want to call it international community. But you need to understand they use these terms to fool people. Throwing them out of the UN? You had the option to throw them out of the UN. Why didn't you throw them yet? They've breached every single UN resolution that they can breach. But the US vetoes everything. What does that say? Rule of the jungle. That's what it said. That's why they only understand the language of force. And so long that they're not punished for their crimes and they don't feel like they have something to lose, they will continue with their arrogance and entitlement and bullying and killing and massacres. They need to be punished. They need to be defeated. This is what needs to happen. Yet, what the elite and its mouthpieces are concerned about is trying to save its image. What we've seen so far after this genocide is Western establishment, certain Western establishment countries, let's to kind of be as specific as possible, worried about Israel's image more than Israel. It's as if they're telling Israel, please don't do that. You won't look good. You won't look good. Reduce it a little bit so you can look good and acceptable so we can defend you. We want to defend you. We love you. This is what they're doing. And Israel is careless of their attempts. They were like, no, we'll do whatever we want and go and defend us anyway. Because we buy you or we own you or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Dale Sandro, in terms of economics, both left and right are based on the same fundamental liberal principles of capitalism, and capitalism always leads to imperialism. That's from Lenin. Look, I don't have a problem with capitalism. If you ask me personally, I'm not a problem with capital. I believe in free markets and people, working and having an option to do business. Well, we didn't have great examples with, radical versions of communism. Not to say that you can't implement things from socialism, for example, right? What I do think is Let's go past this era of sticking to ideologies. Really, can't we do that? Even when you talk about economics, obviously you have a really bad example now with the you have you have a corrupt, evil type imperialism running the world, running over everyone. But what you should really have is a free, in terms of economics, right? A free market. You need to people need to be entrepreneurial. You need to have an entrepreneurial society. Otherwise, you'll stunt your growth. You can't have people in line waiting to get milk like in the Soviet Union days, or food or whatever. You don't want to live in like in North Korea, do you? But at the same time, you can implement more aspects, and have more focus on social justice. We can't live in a world where people are in a $500 million homes and people are starving, right? How can we be in a situation where what we run by enables someone to get away with what they're doing in Gaza, for example, and people are starving, when people throw food in other parts of the country, right? That these people would probably eat anything you throw. Do you know what I mean? So I think with regards to capitalism and socialism and communism, I think it's important. Like we reach a stage of taking what's good from uh, whichever ideology, really, to focus on the implementation of the core foundation of equality and justice. Obviously, there isn't such thing as ultimate justice on this earth. There will never have, never will be complete justice. But what can be done is work towards it, and a constant review, because we're all human beings. We're gonna come up with ideas that are not gonna, always be good, and we can improve them, amend them, modify them. But I mean, it's a nice kind of a topic, do you know what I mean? But unfortunately, you've had, like, if you want to take, for example, talk about communism, right? The US has been obsessed with, you know, taking down communism as much as possible, because to them that was the ideological threat. Okay, then they obviously started attacking Islam more and Muslim movements, because you had more rise in political Islam, right? In so many different versions and variations, from more liberal to more radical to extreme to light. Okay, but to them it was kind of something that can compete with our version of capitalism. But we shouldn't really follow this ideology too much, of demonizing everything to do with either the right or the left, or capitalism or socialism. Take what's good, right? Implement it. And it's something that you constantly review. It's not like, that's it, I'm a capitalist and that's it. Or that's it, I'm left. What's left? Look at them. Look at what they do. And you said something about the capitalism, right? Many times they're similar. In many cases, you think, hold on a second, what are you talking about? To a level where you don't really have a genuine left nor right, and these definitions and the borders between them get very, very blurry. I'm not sure what the name is. Okay. Do you think billionaires still invest in Israel? Do you think billionaires pulling out, Rothschilds and other trillionaires have lots of money in Israel, will they let Israel die? In terms of the Rothschilds, as a family, they had a big role in Israel, obviously. It's like a holy, sacred family in Israel. They have some of the people who died are buried in high places in Jerusalem, streets, hospitals, institutions named after the Rothschild family, because they funded Israel. They believed in this Zionist idea. In terms of trillionaires pulling out the money, look, you already you were degraded, right? They reduced your rating, and you have a negative projection. Anyone who wants to talk about money, not a great place to be in. In terms of investments, you talk about whenever someone wants to put in a significant amount of money. Israel has lots of international headquarters of very big companies, right? Google, Intel, Nvidia, all big, massive, Microsoft, all of these companies, right? Um, but when you want to talk about having significant money in a country, the political situation, the economic situation, the climate, when was their last war, are they stable, are their society stable, all of these things. Now, Israel completely ruined everything. Completely ruined everything. And don't underestimate how bad it was, this Moody's rating, taking Israel. Firstly, it's the first time, it's unprecedented in Israel's history. Secondly, in terms of the government, it was the worst outcome that they could have had. But what made it worse is the projection. They had a negative projection for the future. So if you and I had billions, hopefully one day we will, who knows, we wouldn't want to invest them in Israel. Why? Because it's really, really unstable. There's ongoing war. There's lack of want from the leadership to reach a solution. There is no prospect of a solution. And whichever solutions that are proposed are not long term. They're very short term, that fall under the manage the conflict scenario of Israel that it's been living on for the past 3 decades. Manage the conflict instead of solving the conflict from its roots, right? But to solve it from its roots, they need to look hard and deep in the mirror, right? And question everything they've done previously. And they find it really difficult to do that. Because if it's difficult at an individual level, imagine how difficult it is at a state level. Oh my God, were we actually wrong? Did we do bad? It's difficult to do, but they should. So they can have a chance to have anything. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And what we're seeing is a suicide mission that they're trying to accelerate, by the way. D'Alessandro, D'Alessandro, clearly are you communist then? Okay, you asked me about the exploitation of worker exploitation. Of course, I don't agree with worker exploitation. Tell me about the fundamental of capitalism. But then you've had the amendments to all of that, and workers' rights, right? After fighting. What did the communists not exploit people? Right? But did the Soviet Union not exploit everyone? Didn't they have a greedy top elite that was making money? Right? And again, regardless of theories, look, I'm open to theories. I'll read all theories. It's not that I'm right. I had activities with many Marxists previously as well. But no. However, saying that, I don't like X ideologies and things to do with politics or economy but we shouldn't really, because you'll start restricting yourself. That's why I don't like to identify as anything when it comes to politics. Why should I restrict myself to a certain way and that's it? You need to be dynamic. You need to be dynamic when it comes to these things. Francis, you're asking me to pronounce kufiya. Kufiya, right? This is how you say it. Okay. Let's see if I have anything else before we wrap up. Mo Sultan, What's your take on the PA still have an active security cooperation agreement with the occupation state? Shameful, to say the least. Very shameful. Okay, cool. That's it. All right, thank you so much, guys, for being with me. Let's wrap up here. Thank you for all of your contributions. It was really nice spending time with you and engaging with your opinions and ideas. Hopefully, we will be here tomorrow. Thanks again for all of your contributions. Everyone who sent supers, I'm sorry if I missed names, by the way. Really sorry, apologize. But thanks, I appreciate all of the support and all of our also regular viewers who are always here. I'm seeing names who I always see, and I appreciate that. So enjoy your evening, everyone, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.